We're going to go ahead and start with this Revelation study. But when I do the first teaching of the book of Revelation, I actually start with Revelation 17 and Daniel 2. And the reason I do that, as I explained in previous videos, is that it's a lot easier to understand the book of Revelation when you understand the key players and particularly this Antichrist kingdom. A lot of people have the idea that the Antichrist is a man. The Antichrist is not a man. The reason that doctrine was introduced is because people were pointing to the Catholic Church and they were saying, that's the Antichrist. So the Catholic Church commissioned a theologian. I always get confused whether it's Tertullian or Rivera. I think it was Rivera, to make up a doctrine that the Antichrist is a man. When you read about the man of lawlessness or the man of sin, that's talking about the devil. But I'm going to make it clear to you that the Antichrist is a kingdom, and you're going to know exactly what kingdom it is, what that kingdom actually looks like. The other thing that you need to remember is that Revelation 17, when talking about the Antichrist kingdom, says that it was, is, and is yet to come. This is from the perspective of John in the vision, in which he is in the sixth kingdom in the vision. Not in real life. In real life, Rome is ruling the fourth kingdom. But in the vision, he's in the sixth kingdom. And we know that because he says 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. But he also says that the Antichrist was, now is not, and is yet to come. And we also learn that is the 8th kingdom. So as far as I know, human beings don't live that long. And you should know that this Antichrist has already been in power previously, has already reigned in power previously. So you shouldn't have to go too far trying to figure out who the Antichrist was and is. It's already reigned. It's already been drunk on the blood of God's holy people. And it's going to rise again. And when it rises again, it will be fully harvested in. So that kingdom will be complete. And it will be complete with very specific players. On the dragon are 10 horns, which we're told in Revelation 17 are 10 kings. So these are the 10 Germanic tribes that became Western Europe. And in Daniel 7, we see that those 10 horns are coming out of the fourth kingdom. They're coming out of the fourth kingdom because they were tormenting Rome. These 10 horns that became Western Europe are going to receive power for 1 hour along with the beast. They have one purpose, and that purpose is to give power and authority to the beast. That's it. They have reigned along with the beast through NATO by reigning with the false prophet of the United States. And they have testified to the image of the beast, counterfeit Israel, through things like the Balfour Declaration, giving blank check support to counterfeit Israel, etc. This dragon is also wearing 7 heads, and those heads are kingdoms. In Daniel 2, we learn that those kingdoms start with Babylon. So you just got to count it down. Babylon fell to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia fell to Greece. Greece fell to pagan Rome. Pagan Rome fell to papal Rome. But there's 7 kingdoms. These are only 5 that are described in Daniel 2. Now, when papal Rome fell, it was not one thing that made papal Rome fall. There were multiple factors. One was Napoleon. Napoleon took the Pope prisoner. Another was Italy. And another were the reformists. And we're told that this is a divided kingdom, this 5th kingdom. Now, a lot of you learned in counterfeit Christianity that the reformists were correct and Catholicism was wrong. And that's not true, nor is it biblically sound. Revelation 17 tells us that Babylon the Great, the Catholicism, is the mother of all prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. We're also told that she fornicates with kings, the important people of the earth. So she has prostitute daughters. These are not just the reformists, because we wouldn't necessarily call Mormonism or Jehovah's Witness, we wouldn't identify them as being reformist, and yet they continue in her prostitutions, don't they? Her prostitutions of Sunday and Saturday. God never names his days. Where'd we get that from? That's from the Romans. Sunday and Saturday Sabbath? Nope, not God's Sabbaths. Christmas and Easter? Where'd those come from? The image of the cross? Also from Rome. Making God's house a marketplace through things like indulgences and tithing? Nope, tithing was fulfilled through sacrifice. So you see that they continue in these prostitutions, and you know exactly where they got them from, which makes them her daughters. They belong to her. They don't belong to Christ. It's not like the reformists against Catholicism. And that's been made to be the supposed battle between good and evil. Nope, sorry. So what came to power is what God has described as being behind these beasts. It's a woman riding a beast in Revelation 17. It is a church controlling government. And so from there on out, you're going to see that there is a divided kingdom that's being worked out to bring it full circle back to the Antichrist that was started by Papal Rome. So you have Papal Rome as the fifth kingdom. Then you have the Protestants as the sixth kingdom. And those Protestants were told in Daniel 11 that they are the successor who send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor of this harlot kingdom. That would be counterfeit tithing. And then it says, in a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. So there's no anger about it. There's no fighting over it. They give their power over to the false prophet. And so what you see in Daniel 11, for example, so in Daniel 5, you see some pretty concrete kingdoms. And then by Daniel 11, you're seeing more of that division and that spiritual battle in this spiritual kingdom. Spiritual doesn't necessarily have a positive connotation. Satan is spiritual as well. So this is a spiritual battle and a spiritual kingdom of the Antichrist. And that's what's being described in Daniel 11. So you have the fifth kingdom of Papal Rome, sixth kingdom of the Protestants, the seventh kingdom in which the power is being shifted over to the false prophet, who, according to Revelation 13, is testifying to the Antichrist, the kingdom of the Antichrist, this false religion, and creates an image for everyone to worship. That image is going to receive the transfer of power. And in Revelation 13, we're told that it's that image that is going to kill all who will not worship it and receive its mark. We are told that the false prophet is going to prevent those who will not receive the mark of the beast, not a jab, not a tattoo, not a chip or AI or technology. This is something that is received in the heart. You're going to be justified by your heart. That's what the word says. And then from your heart will come your deeds in your right hand, your thoughts and beliefs in your forehead, and the things that you declare. So they're not drinking the Kool-Aid. They're not ingesting that ideology. That's not the belief. They're not believing in delusions and deceptions and falsehood. They hold fast to their covenant with Christ. And so they are punished by the Antichrist, specifically the image of the Antichrist and the false prophet, for not drinking the Kool-Aid. Now we already have, this is already going on in various ways. In fact, people are being turned away. I saw in the news the other day that an Australian man was turned away from entering the United States because he was questioned about his views on Israel. Like, when did that become the criteria for being able to enter the United States? Well, apparently it is now. So the false prophet, according to Revelation 13, is going to blacklist is one of the words that we use sometimes, prevent those who will not receive the mark of the beast from being able to buy or sell. So let's go to scripture and read about some of the things that I just explained to you so that you can know where it is. Daniel 2. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before, by the way, these are the wise men. Do you ever hear of the wise men? The magi with regard to Jesus' birth? These are the wise men. God is not saying that these are that they were wise according to God. These are the wise men of the world. That's who the king called in. That's who also brought gifts to Jesus. They were astrologers. That's why they were looking for, and they noticed that star. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. Then the astrologers answered the king, May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we'll interpret it. The king replied to the astrologers, This is what I've firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you do tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. Once more they replied, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will interpret it. Then the king answered, I'm certain that you're trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I've firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there's only one penalty for you. You've conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. The astrologers answered the king, There's no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. That's because they're fake. Spoiler alert. The gods are fake, and so are the wise men. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guards, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke with him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, Why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went in to the king and asked for time, so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You've given me wisdom and power. You've made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him. Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, I found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Daniel replied, No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he's asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. By the way, pay attention to what he's doing. He doesn't take credit for it. He gives credit to God. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that passed through your mind as you were lying in bed are these. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation, and that you may understand what went through your mind. Your majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Okay, we kind of know what that is, right? That's Jesus, obviously. Mount Zion, that's striking it. That's the rock. And that it becomes a huge mountain, Mount Zion, and fills the whole earth. And there's not a trace of these other kingdoms. But here's the thing. We learn that there's actually 8 kingdoms. And this 5th kingdom does not get struck until it becomes the 8th kingdom in Revelation 17. So keep that in mind. It's still the 5th kingdom, but it's not until it's fulfilled in the 8th kingdom. So now it consists of the Antichrist that was started through papal Rome, the prostitutes that bore out of her, the false prophet, Western Europe, which receives power along with the false prophet and the Antichrist, and then the image of the Antichrist. And this is the 8th kingdom, the fulfillment of the Antichrist kingdom, when wickedness and violence has blossomed. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your majesty, you are the King of kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind, and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky, wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. What is Daniel saying? It starts with your kingdom. You're a kingdom of Babylon. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a 4th kingdom, strong as iron. For as iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things into pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw, iron mixed with clay. So let's count them down. Babylon fell to Medo-Persia, Medo-Persia fell to Greece, Greece fell to pagan Rome fell to papal Rome. Mixed kingdom, divided kingdom. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. Okay, let me just stop right there for a moment. You have surely heard pastors saying there's too much infighting in God's church. And what they are doing is speaking from the prostitute that they represent. There is no infighting in God's church. God's church is brought together in unity. He doesn't have that kind of disorder. These denominations are prostitutes that bore out of the harlot Catholic Church. So no one message me and ask me, well, which is the true church? The true church, according to John 4, are those who worship in the spirit and in truth. The true church are those who assemble with those who worship in the spirit and in truth. The true church does not make a marketplace of God. So they don't have a regular place, mega church to assemble in because they don't have that kind of wealth. Don't ask me what true prostitute belongs to God because it's an oxymoron. There's no true prostitute. A prostitute is based on falsehood. A prostitute is based on choosing the world over God. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. All right, so that is the first 5 kingdoms. Where was the rock thrown? It was thrown to the 5th kingdom. In Revelation 17, we learn that the 5th kingdom is also the 8th. So while the rock will indeed be thrown to the 5th kingdom, it's not going to be until the fulfillment of the 8th kingdom, until this kingdom is fully brought in the time of the end. Now, before we move on to Revelation 17, I want to just show you in Daniel 11 a sort of pattern that God has established in that chapter, because it can be a little bit of a cumbersome chapter to understand. But this pattern can also be, I think it's important to be able to apply, and in order to understand what God is now, that he has established these physical kingdoms in order for you to now understand a spiritual kingdom that has been established by the Antichrist. And from here at the 5th kingdom out, we are just talking about a spiritual kingdom that is in power behind these kings of the earth, these kingdoms of the earth, these beasts. And that we know that it is not the beast controlling the woman, the beast controlling the church, government controlling church. A woman in Revelation is a church. It is not the government controlling church. It is the church controlling government. And we're not talking about God's church. We're talking about counterfeit churches. The synagogue of Satan, as it is referred to in Revelation 2 and 3. We are talking about the Antichrist kingdom. It is a spiritual kingdom. And so now that God has established what a physical kingdom is, you can understand how a spiritual kingdom works. So in Daniel 11, this is what God is describing. He's describing that divided kingdom. And within that kingdom, there are kings. Now, you already have an example of this in Scripture, so it shouldn't be too confusing for you. Through Solomon's son Rehoboam, Israel was split in 2, and they fought with each other constantly. And the northern kingdom was always trying to take over the southern kingdom, which was called Judah. And it was comprised of the tribe of Benjamin and Judah. And the northern kingdom were the rest of the tribes of Israel. Constant fighting between those kingdoms. But really it was one kingdom. And it was split. So it shouldn't be too confusing for you to apply that understanding to Daniel 11 and understand that this is indeed one kingdom of the Antichrist, but it's divided. And we have the king of the north and the king of the south. Those are the 2 main players being described here. And then there's the beautiful land. And the beautiful land are God's people. The rest of this is not. The rest of this, the king of the north and the king of the south, are those who are infighting within this kingdom and have this constant transfer of power. And so the king of the north is always represented as the one having power. And the king of the south is really kind of taking a back seat to it. But they're battling constantly. In the first half of this chapter, it's describing this battle between Protestantism, the 6th kingdom, and the 5th kingdom of Catholicism. And so it goes through a lot of detail to talk about the battle between the 2. My daughter was I was talking with her earlier today because I've made the comment that, there were a lot of people who came into the Americas. Some were just outright evil, like they came and they raped the people who were already here, and they did horrible, horrible things. But there were also people who were trying to escape religious persecution and could not succeed at just being able to come out of this harlot and escape her and be able to just live in the truth. And I've made this statement that here in America, we were given a place, the land of the free, a place where we could worship freely, but we decided to worship other things. And it uses language here that kind of makes you think about that. The forces of the South will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. So it sounds like they're battling like in a physical war, but this is a spiritual war. It doesn't necessarily mean there have been times in history where the reformists, were persecuting through the witch trials, for example, and Catholicism was persecuting through the Spanish Inquisition, for example, or, through Bloody Mary, burning people at the stake. But we also have situations in which they were colonizing, or they were what they call Christianizing, which of course we know is not Christianity. So you have this language. The forces of the South will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. The invader will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to stand against him, and he will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. Do you see that? He establishes himself, he the Antichrist of Satan, but Satan is not a man. Satan works through those who choose him. Many antichrists have come, and he's working through this kingdom of those who've chosen him. So don't be tripped up on the language of he or she. No, the Antichrist is not a man or a woman, but exists in many men and many women who are calling themselves Christian, who are calling themselves Jews, but are of this synagogue of Satan, of this kingdom, of this Antichrist kingdom of Satan, who ultimately is the Antichrist. If Christ exists in you, you're of his kingdom. You're marked by him. If Satan exists in you, you're of his kingdom. You're marked by him. It's not rocket science, whatever that is. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them, but a commander will put an end to his insolence and turn his insolence back on him. So this commander has come out of, who is this? This commander is representing Napoleon. Remember that I told you it's not one thing that took down papal Rome, but one thing did succeed papal Rome in power. And that wasn't Napoleon. So previously, I was wrong about that part. Napoleon did take their pope and did bring, was used to facilitate the taking down of papal Rome. But the one that succeeded in power is one who is spiritual, because that spiritual Antichrist is what is behind these beasts. So it's the reformists that are that next kingdom. And so it says here that commander puts an end to his insolence and turns his insolence back on him. And after this, he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. So it's not that papal Rome doesn't have power. It does have power. In fact, they have a permanent seat on the United Nations, right? The Holy See has a permanent seat on the United Nations because they are a government. They have a lot of influence in this world. But there's a difference between having power and reigning. So they're no longer reigning. So now the shift of power has gone to who? The reformists. His successor, the reformists, will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. That's counterfeit tithing. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. So there's no war that went on in order for the reformists or the counterfeit Christian prostitutes that bore out of the harlot Catholic Church. There wasn't like this big battle. There wasn't anger. They handed over their power, really, to the false prophet of the United States, and the false prophet of the United States just kind of takes it from there and runs with the narrative and testifies to the Antichrist kingdom and all of these false doctrines, and then sets up a doctrine that we are to worship the image of the Antichrist that it has set up. And it talks about this in Revelation 13. And it describes that this second beast, as it's referred to in Revelation 13, don't let that confuse you. It's the seventh beast on the dragon, but it's the second beast within the context of what's being described in Revelation 13. This false prophet has two purposes. One, to testify to the Antichrist, the doctrines of this satanic kingdom, and two, to set up the image of the beast, which is counterfeit Israel. So it creates an image of what Israel is. So maybe some of you saw or heard the interview between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson was kind of punking him, really, because Ted Cruz is like citing this thing that's written in Genesis that is contextual and was not said to all of Israel, but was said actually both to Jacob and to Abraham at different places in Scripture, about whoever curses you, I will curse, whoever blesses you, I will bless. And he says, well, I want to be on the side of blessing. I mean, he's just like it's like hillbilly America, really stupid. He didn't even know where it was in Scripture. And Tucker Carlson's like punking him, and he's like, so where is that in Scripture? And he doesn't know. And he does the thing that people do when they don't know what they're talking about. They try to get you to prove their argument because they're not worth their salt. And he's like, well, take out your phone and look it up. And Tucker Carlson's like, I already know where it's at. It's in Genesis. So what you're claiming is that Israel is the same the Israel that God was talking about in Genesis is the same Israel. Like, this is your basis for, as a U.S. senator, for why we should continue to arm Israel and give them blank check support and support a genocide in Gaza, is that you believe that anybody can call themselves Israel. I mean, Islam can call themselves Israel. What's stopping them? Just like anyone can call themselves a Christian. You people of God are supposed to be discerning by the fruit and testing the spirit and not believing that everyone is from God. So what Tucker Carlson says is like, so you're defining, you think that the Israel in Genesis, when God made that statement, that you don't know where it's at and you have no context for it, but this is your theology. You are telling me that Israel is the same Israel that was established in 1948, in which this is Netanyahu's Israel with all the boundaries that exist in, all of this. Stupid. And this is what the United States created with Netanyahu. They made this Frankenstein. And it just so happens that the Bible told us that the false prophet of the United States, the seventh kingdom, was going to do this. And they have. Never mind that they claim to be the chosen people, but they murder, sodomize, and steal land. Never mind their fruit. It's just by virtue of the fact that they call themselves Israel. It's like the stupidest thing ever. But now that is the purpose of the false prophet, is to create that thing, that abomination, that image that is going to be responsible for killing all those, or causing them to be killed, those who will not receive the mark of the beast or worship it, those who stand in their covenant and know their God. So you want to go up in the first resurrection, you want to be saved, you should know that you're going to die. Because the word says that all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life are going to receive the mark of the beast. And if you receive the mark of the beast, the smoke of your torment will rise forever and ever. There's no salvation for you. And the word says in Revelation 13 that those who do not receive the mark of the beast will be killed. Period. Will be killed. Don't act like you're going to be picked up. Don't act like you have a different covenant. This is the reason why early Christians, first of all, were being slaughtered. Paul talked about it. Sawed in two, fed to wild animals, all kinds of stuff was happening to them. This is the reason why Jesus said things like, don't fear those who can kill the body. Fear the one who can kill both soul and body in hell. Or after the body has been killed, can throw your body in hell. Your soul in hell. Depending on the translation. This is why Jesus said things like the very people who kill you are going to claim to be doing a service to God. This is why in Revelation 20, John sees those going up in the first resurrection as those who've been beheaded. Don't act like you have the different covenant. You're not the Gentile covenant. There's one covenant, and it's for everybody. There's neither Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, male nor female in the kingdom of God. And anyone who is defining Israel to be some genetic status, some DNA, the word says you're going to be justified by your heart. The word defines a Jew as those who are circumcised in heart. The word says that not all who are descended from Abraham are Abraham's children, and not all who are descended from Israel are Israel. Not only that, but Arabs have the same DNA or similar DNA to those calling themselves Jews. And so-called Jews believe that Arabs and Islam derived from the brother of Isaac, descended from Abraham. They believe that. So how are you going to use the narrative that those who are descended are Israel, are Jews, and then slaughter your brother, slaughter his descendants, but claim that by the very thing that you justify yourself on, which is descent, that they don't have that same right if they're descended, or that they aren't of your same family? This is bizarre. Like, does anyone think about this stuff? So back to Daniel 11, verse 20 is describing his successor will send out a tax collector. Whose successor? Catholicism. Transfer of power now to the prostitutes that bore out of her. Sending out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle, because they're giving over their power to the false prophet. And now the false prophet is taking over in power. Okay? False prophet, United States. Then the false prophet, and you should be able to see this right now, gives over power to who? Gives over power to the image of the Antichrist that it created. And it does this along with the 10 horns that became Western Europe. Is this happening? Happens through NATO, happened through the Balfour Declaration, and all of this support, the blank check support that's given over. And so then you have that he will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. Now, I want you to notice here that it doesn't appear to have another kingdom because it is in essence a joint endeavor between the prostitutes and the false prophet. It's a joint endeavor, is it not? Christian Zionism, Christian nationalism, yes, it's a joint endeavor. They come together and they give this power over to this false prophet of the United States, which, don't be confused, we're not necessarily talking about this physical nation. It's a spiritual nation, even though it's also a physical nation. And so that is going to be succeeded by a contemptible person who's not been given the honor of royalty. Why has Israel not been given the honor of royalty? Why is it being described that way? Because it's based on a lie. It's based on a false doctrine. It's not been given the honor of royalty. It's a farce. These are devils claiming to be the chosen. And we're not talking about all Israelis. We're not talking about all Jews. Not all people believe or buy into this lie of Zionism. So don't make the mistake of making this an ethnic thing or even a, all those who call themselves Jews thing. Make the distinction. Now here it says, he will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure and he will seize it through intrigue. And that's exactly what he's done, is that he has gone, well, their representative anyway, Netanyahu, has gone in and spoken to Congress, invaded the kingdom through AIPAC. And you see that an overwhelming army is going to be swept away before him. Both it and the Prince of the Covenant will be destroyed. This is referring to who's the Prince of the Covenant, the false prophet. One of the princes of the covenant. And when we talk about that covenant, we're talking about what? A covenant made in this Antichrist kingdom with these other kingdoms. Okay, so as we go on, we also see that it's invading the beautiful land, that it is, that the image of the Antichrist is going to act deceitfully. We know things that it's going to do, by the way. After the witnesses die, it's going after those who don't have the seal of God on their foreheads. So it's actually going after the very people who worship it. That's the first woe and the plague that comes when the fifth trumpet is blown. We also know from Revelation 9 that it's wearing a breastplate of iron. Well, what we read about iron, what's iron? It's wearing a breastplate of iron. Well, we wear a breastplate of righteousness. So the thing that's over its breastplate is iron. And that comes from papal Rome. So it's not that papal Rome is not going to be involved. It's just not going to be reigning. It will be in power along with this Antichrist system. But you're not going to just see papal Rome being the one in power. It's actually the image of the Antichrist that has the power at this time. And not only do you see that, but you also see in Daniel 11 that it's going to rise to power and attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. This is referring to papal Rome and the support that's going to be provided by that foreign god. That's the foreign god that was set up in that Antichrist kingdom, right? They're the ones who set it up. Okay, you also see that he's going to distribute plunder and wealth and blah, blah, blah. This is what you're seeing right now in AIPAC. This is what you're seeing in all of our bot politicians. So that's enough of Daniel 11 for now, because we want to really focus on Revelation 17 now. But by now, you should have a sense of what the Antichrist kingdom is. It was started in the fifth kingdom by the harlot Catholic Church. It continued in the sixth kingdom by the prostitutes that bore out of her. It continued in the seventh kingdom by the false prophet who testifies to her and is bringing things full circle, is going to make it is facilitating the rise of the Antichrist through setting up the image of the Antichrist and testifying to the Antichrist kingdom and its false narrative. And so finally, you will have the eighth kingdom, which is the image of the Antichrist being mainly in power, but you will have that fulfillment of all of these kings within this kingdom, or all of these kingdoms within the kingdom, and you will have that final rise in the eighth kingdom. And that's going to reign for 42 months. And then that rock cut out, not by human hands, will be thrown to it. All of the kingdoms will come down. They will be completely swept away. And Mount Zion will fill the earth. Revelation 17. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came to me and said, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters." Okay, the great prostitute is the harlot Catholic Church. That's Babylon the Great. So when you see that, when you see the great harlot, it's referring specifically to Catholicism. And it sits by many waters. You're going to see later on in the chapter that the waters or the sea are peoples, languages, multitudes, and nations. So you don't need to be like, oh, is this an island? No, it's sitting by many peoples. It's a global power. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery. Okay, so she's in bed with all the important people of the world. And the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Wine of her adulteries means false doctrines. Wine is doctrine. Remember that Christ was giving new wineskins to the apostles, a new heart in which they could have new wine, new teaching, new doctrine poured into them. It would contain that. Okay? So they're intoxicated with her false doctrines. You ever tried to convince someone that they should no longer be celebrating Christmas? Because I have. They are intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. These people will not give up their traditions and their prostitutions. They won't do it. And they will try to convince themselves, well, actually, they do convince themselves, though they can't convince God, that they're actually worshiping God in these detestable ways. If you've ever observed God's holy days, you don't observe his holy days the same way that you do Christmas or Easter. This is what they choose. They'd rather have that. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, papal Rome, the prostitutes that bore out of her, and the 7th kingdom, the false prophet of the United States. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with the abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, so she's got daughters, and of the abominations of the earth. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. Okay, I'm not feeling the need to pause and explain this to you because I've already been talking to you about it, right? So she's already been killing God's people. She's already done that. She's been drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. She's going to do it again. Now she's going to do it with the full kingdom when she rises again. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. The angel said to me, "Why are you astonished? I'll explain to you the mystery of the woman and the beast she rides, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, now is not." From the perspective of John, he's in the 6th kingdom in the vision. Once was, now is not, and yet will come out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book, in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. Okay, I also want you to pay attention to how it says, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. Same language that is used in Revelation 11 when talking about the witnesses, that it's going to rise from the abyss to overpower and kill the witnesses. Same imagery that is being used in Revelation 9 when you see the star fall from the sky, and then you're told that it goes into the abyss, and then it rises from the abyss, okay? So this is what we're talking about. Now in Revelation 12, you should understand what we're talking about. Why is it that this is happening? Because the witnesses have testified, and Satan has lost his place in the heavenly realms. That was the last thing that was needed in order for him to lose his place in the heavenly realms. So now he's been cast out of heaven. So star falling from the sky, lost his place in the heavenly realms. Now he's gone down to the earth and sea. So woe to you, because he's gone down to you, and he's angry because he knows his time is short. So now he's gone down into the abyss, risen from the abyss, overpowered and killed the witnesses, and now he's going after you. I've already told you that that's going to happen. You know, it's Sabbath tonight, so we got, and the 15th of the 9th month on God's calendar is when the witnesses are going to complete their testifying. I'm not going to tell you what that is on the Gregorian calendar. You should be observing God's calendar. You figure it out. But that's 3.5 months away. As of, well, tonight is actually new moon. We've already passed Sabbath. So as of Sabbath, 3.5 months away. You ready? You ready to go through what I'm going through right now? You ready to die for God? You better return, guys. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. Now, I've heard people argue about this. 7 heads. Oh, what are the 7 heads? What are the 7 hills? Oh, Rome lies on 7 hills. Verse 10 tells you they are also 7 kings. And in some translations, they are also 7 kingdoms, which is more accurate. Okay? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The word interprets itself. They are 7 kings or 7 kingdoms. 5 have fallen. One is, the other is not yet come, but when she does come, he must remain only for a little while. That's referring to the United States, the false prophet. And the reason he only remains for a little while is why? Two things he does: testify to the Antichrist and create the image of the Antichrist. The beast who once was, now is not, is an eighth king. So, John's in the sixth kingdom. I know it says that it's one of the seven, but he's in the sixth kingdom, and he's already been told that it was, now is not, and is yet going to come. So we can narrow it down to 5 kingdoms. And we already know what kingdom it is based on Daniel 2. And then there are some clues in here as to what kingdom it is. The piece that we did not understand is the building up to that Antichrist from the 5th kingdom in Daniel 2. The 5th kingdom of papal Rome, to the prostitutes that bore out of her, to the false prophet, to Western Europe, to the image of the Antichrist. The beast who once was, now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. You see, he belongs to the 7, but let's narrow it down. He actually belongs to the 5. Because we already know that he was, now is not, from the perspective of John in the 6th kingdom. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. Have they received authority as kings along with the beast? Yes, they've received authority with NATO. Why do you think they're kissing his butt right now? They have one purpose, and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers. Then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. I told you that at the beginning of the chapter. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. Okay. So the physical nations, the 10 horns, Western Europe, and the beast, the government, is going to hate the prostitute. They're going to hate her. Not right now, not until these things are fulfilled, but once it's fulfilled, they're going to hate her. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. All right, let's just check some boxes here and see if this adds up. So global power, was papal Rome a global power? Yes. Global influence. Does it continue to have global influence? Yes. Do the prostitutes that bore out of her have global? Yes, they do. Does the false prophet? Yes. Does the image of the Antichrist? Yes. But it all started with papal Rome. And that's really what they're talking about, okay? That's the global power. The great prostitute, as was written in the first paragraph, global power. Has it been drunk on the blood of God's holy people? Has it persecuted God's holy people? Yes. Does it fornicate with the kings of the earth? Yes. Which of those early 5 kingdoms, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, and papal Rome, which one of those still has power? Papal Rome. By process of elimination, we know what kingdom it is. And based on Daniel 2, that the rock is going to be thrown to the 5th kingdom, we know what kingdom it is. We know what started this Antichrist kingdom and how it continues to grow. All right, I've completed this teaching. I want you to sit with God, go to him and ask him if this teaching is true, and go to him and ask him what that means for you, what you need to be doing right now. And I will continue doing this teaching. Maybe a video a day. We'll see how it goes. But you need to know the times so that you know what to do, don't you? And that's why I'm doing this for you. Don't let it be in vain by treating it like some sort of a research paper for you to memorize or just have this carnal understanding. And if you discern it to be true, then share it with others. And I'm not talking about that for the purpose of I'm going to be monetized and I'm going to get, something. I don't care about all that. Invite them over to your home. Have dinner with them, Study this with them. Talk with them about it. Talk about what's going on right now. Don't be a wicked and lazy servant. Get people involved. Your families, they need to know what's going on. Discern this message with God.